again today, and they said they absolutely stand by their decision to exclude you. Quote, coming to the UK is a privilege that we refuse to extend to those who abuse our standards or values and undermine our way of life. What do you say to that?
Well, I would have thought that one of the standards and values of British life would have been giving a person an opportunity to meet their accuser. I would have thought that one of the standards and values of the British people would be giving a person an opportunity to explain whether or not they meant what they read somewhere. I'd like to know where Jackie Smith got these excerpts, because I think I know where they came from. After all, my show is not broadcast in the United Kingdom. So who in the United States government sent these to Jackie Smith in an attempt to destroy the conservative movement in America?
Yeah, well, I wonder if the standards and values of England include polluting the Gulf of Mexico. I wonder if the standards and values of England include using shoddy equipment and faulty inspections when drilling in the backyard of the United States of America. I wonder if the standards and values of Britain include permitting real terrorists, the children of real terrorists and murderers, to visit England and to spew real hatred and to talk about real murder. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Savage Nation. At the risk of your displeasure, I feel I must talk a little bit more about the fact that Britain, under the so-called conservative government, has continued the exact same policies of the Socialist Labour Party that preceded them, which is amazing to me. It should be amazing to you. You know, I have a black colleague, and I was speaking with him about my being banned in the UK this morning. And I said to him, even the so-called conservative regime in England is refusing to undo the damage done to my name and reputation, let alone my personal safety. So my black friend said to me, you know, Savage, you're being treated by the British the way blacks were treated by southern white bigots in the 1940s and 50s in the South. I was stunned, frankly, by his observation. I said, you know, there is a great deal of truth in what you said. You see, in the South before the 60s, black people in the South were routinely convicted of crimes without a fair trial. I want you to think about what I'm saying. I, Michael Savage, have been tried and convicted of a crime by the British government without the benefit of any trial nor the right to defend myself. In the Jim Crow era, racists in the South made sure that blacks had separate and inferior accommodations on trains, buses, and in hotels, while in the England of today, I have been denied any accommodation whatsoever. In the South of the pre-civil rights era, even drinking fountains had signs on them that said whites only. Well, today there's a sign in England that says leftists only. Michael Savage need not apply. I believe England selected Michael Savage for discrimination because I'm not a Muslim. I believe they attack me because I'm a conservative. I believe they attack me because I stand for national sovereignty and national identity in a world where they want that to dissolve. And they attacked me because they want to appease their own guilty consciences with regard to their inherent racism and anti-nationalism. England's liberalism allows the virus of radical Islam to spread unabated, while conservatism would contain this virus, which threatens to destroy the entire world, and conservatism is banned. Despite a new Prime Minister, Britain's travel ban for Michael Savage continues. Britain bans Michael Savage again and welcomes Che Guevara's daughter. The Savage Nation versus the Dying Nation. These are some of the wonderful blog items that have been written. Probably one of the best, or my favorite thus far, is the one written by Humberto Fantova, and that has been posted on michaelsavage.com. Now, Humberto Fantova is of Cuban ancestry. He knows what Fidel Castro and Che Guevara really are. What sickens me and turns my stomach is the way the vermin in the American media are glorifying that mass murderer Fidel Castro every time he burps. They make believe he's the father of the world. The man is a murderer, a mass murderer. And yet the idiots in the media glorify him. They hold him up as a role model, a man who's killed so many. Do you know that in Castro's Cuba, I don't think you know this. Do you know any of what I'm about to tell you? Do you know that in Castro's Cuba, more people were killed proportionate to the population than in the early years of the Hitler regime? Do you know that in Castro's Cuba, more people were killed than in the Stalinist regime and in the early days of the Stalinist regime? And yet, they still have pictures of Che Guevara on the walls of universities. Now, it gets even worse. What gets me is that Che Guevara's daughter was invited to the United Kingdom after I was banned from the United Kingdom. And here's what he writes. He said, instead of the false contrition, groveling, and confessions that Stalin, Mao, and Che Guevara demanded from the subjects they accused of thought crimes before murdering them, Michael Savage sought to repudiate his listing alongside terrorists and Nazis by resorting to the tenets of Western jurisprudence and presenting evidence to the contrary. He writes, in today's Britain, what's left of the Magna Carta only works in favor of actual Islamic terrorists. 1 month after insulting and banning Michael Savage last summer, Britain opened their arms to Che Guevara's daughter, Alida. The occasion was a celebration in London titled Cuba 50, billed as the biggest European celebration in the 50th anniversary of the Cuban Revolution. Really? And then he writes, Britain threw the continent's biggest party commemorating 50 years of Castro's Stalinist regime, which jailed political prisoners at a higher rate than Stalin's, murdered political prisoners at a higher rate than pre-war Hitler's, and came closest of anyone to plunging the world into nuclear war. Che's daughter was there to promote, in her own words, my father's ideals, his concerns, and his ambitions. She said, I believe that my father is a banner to the world. If we could only follow his example, the world would be a much more beautiful place. So, Umberto writes, fine, let's have a look at Alida's father's ambitions, keeping in mind that what got Michael Savage banned was his purported fostering of extremist views and his so-called hate speech. I will quote now Ernesto Che Guevara. Hatred, he said, is the central element of our struggle. Hatred that is intransigent. Hatred so violent that it propels a human being beyond his natural limitations, making him violent and cold-blooded killing machine. We reject any peaceful approach. Violence is inevitable. To establish socialism, rivers of blood must flow. The imperialist enemy must feel like a hunted animal wherever he moves. Thus we'll destroy him. These hyenas, the Americans, are fit only for extermination. We must keep our hatred alive and fan it to paroxysm. The victory of socialism is well worth millions of atomic victims. Che Guevara, in a speech in 1966 to the Tricontinental Conference in Havana. He writes, no rational person would require much elasticity of definition to classify Alida's father, Che Guevara, this banner to the world, as hate speech. And Alida Guevara, in an interview with The Guardian during the visit to England, boasted of her fervent fostering of her father's view. Listen to this. Here's what she said in England. I want you to ask yourself, do you think Che Guevara's daughter could provoke intra-community violence? Listen to what she said. I want to be like Che and fight until final victory. Then you feel elated. It is preferable to sink in the sea than to betray the glory that once lived. Ladies and gentlemen, this is it. Gun butts and bayonets bashing in the brains of the people of the United States of America are not what you are experiencing. You're not experiencing socialism's gun butts and bayonets yet. What you're experiencing is the brain beating of an incessant propaganda machine, both in Britain and the United States. Now, what do I mean by that? It's very simple what I mean by that. It means that they let mass murderers' daughters in to talk about mass murder and socialism, and they ban a conservative who believes in nationalism. I'll let you figure out the battle that is ongoing and what side you have to be on. I'll be right back.